Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. Right now, Turning Point USA is just hours away from a major campus event at the University of Minnesota. It comes nearly 2 weeks after the organization's founder, Charlie Kirk, was assassinated on the same campus tour in Utah. Conservative political commentator Michael Knowles will be taking Kirk's place this evening at 6:30 p.m. Michelle Beck has a look at what to expect from today's event.
Well, in just a matter of hours, Turning Point USA will be hosting what's called a high-energy evening at Northrop Auditorium. It'll be the group's very first stop since the funeral of its founder, Charlie Kirk. You'll notice tonight's event has been renamed to feature Michael Knowles, a conservative political commentator. It's on this same tour of college campuses nationwide when Kirk, then in Utah, was fatally shot. And now we're seeing safety protocols at the U, like audience members needing to show government ID to get in. Also banned are water bottles, signs, banners, and certain types of bags. The university declined to speak with us on security because it's not sponsoring the event. But here's what a retired FBI special agent had to say.
With the heightened security awareness environment that we're in, it's something that has to be taken very, very seriously as we move forward with these events. I'm confident that the security professionals at the University of Minnesota event will have taken the lessons from some of these other incidents.
So if there was a security wish list, the former special agent said he'd want metal detectors and security that can move around like to rooftops. He also says everyone should be aware of their surroundings and report anything suspicious. Back to you.
Happening today, a judge is expected to rule on whether the city of Minneapolis will get a restraining order to keep a homeless encampment closed. The order would prevent Hamoudi Sabri from reopening the encampment on his Lake Street property. The city claims that last week's mass shooting is just the latest in a serious series of health and safety hazards.
It's just a ticking clock for some kind of immeasurable tragedy.
The real nuisance, as far as the city is concerned, are the people that have nothing.
In a hearing last week, the judge ordered both sides to try to resolve the problem before coming back to the court today. But during those proceedings, it is clear that the two sides have a very large divide to bridge. Well, a crime that has been growing across the country in recent years is now also happening here in Minnesota. Thieves are making off with used cooking oil from restaurants. Gordon Severson shows us what's making it such an attractive target for criminals.
You can't have fried food without oil. And when the oil gets old and dirty, it often ends up here in a dumpster behind the restaurant. But that oil is more valuable than you might think. The oil is often used to make biofuel. According to the American Soybean Association, used cooking oil is worth about 40 cents a pound. Liquid Recovery Solutions, a grease recycling company, says the global market for used cooking oil in 2023 was worth about $7 billion. And that number is expected to double in the coming years. And criminals are now taking advantage of that growing demand. An employee at Great Moon Buffet in Maplewood says they discovered someone was stealing their oil when their monthly recycling checks suddenly went from a few $100s to around $30. They now have a camera to provide extra security. An employee at New Hong Kong Walk in New Brighton says their oil was stolen as well, but they didn't know until they received a call from their grease recycling company.
And it's very possible that other restaurant owners are falling victim to this crime. I talked to one restaurant manager who uses this dumpster here, and she tells me that she used to get checks for about $20 to $30, and suddenly the checks stopped coming. She thought maybe they were just using less oil. She really didn't think much of it. I asked her, do you think that possibly someone is breaking in and stealing your oil? She says, it's possible, I just don't know.
Sanimax, which services many of the restaurants in the Twin Cities metro, says they are, quote, concerned about grease theft, and they are working with local law enforcement to prosecute anyone who is caught stealing oil. Gordon Severson, KARE 11 News.
And police are now encouraging restaurant owners to lock their dumpsters and also install cameras. Happening today, Hurricane Gabriel strengthening to a Category 3 storm over the Atlantic waters. According to the National Hurricane Center, winds are now reaching about 120 miles per hour. As of this morning, the hurricane was about 200 miles southeast of Bermuda. While the storm is not expected to make landfall as it moves north, Gabriel could cause some life-threatening surf and rip current conditions along the U.S. East Coast in the early part of this week. Right now, major news outlets are pushing back on new restrictions that would sharply restrict reporting at the Pentagon. The new rules were announced on Friday, stating that Pentagon reporters will have to sign a pledge to not obtain or disclose sensitive information without the government's approval. Doing so would revoke a journalist's press credentials. The New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal all issued statements condemning the new policy.
We're going to have an announcement on autism on Monday. Got to be Monday. I don't want to do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I think it's going to be a very important announcement.
Today, President Trump is expected to make a major announcement on autism. He teased the announcement during Sunday's memorial service for Charlie Kirk, saying his administration had found the cause for the condition. Reports say Trump's administration is planning to link the development of autism in children with the use of the pain reliever Tylenol during pregnancy. Experts, however, say there is no single cause for autism. Protests against the Disney Corporation are growing after the company's subsidiary ABC pulled Jimmy Kimmel off the air. The decision came after the comments that Kimmel made about the death of Charlie Kirk. Disney continues to lose subscribers as the late-night talk show remains suspended. Liz Cruz has been following the story.
This morning, the backlash growing over ABC's decision to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air amid pressure from the FCC commissioner. Overnight, fellow comedian John Oliver speaking out.
Seems like a pretty clear case of the government pressuring companies to censor speech.
Last week, comments Kimmel made about Kirk's alleged shooter sparking outrage among conservatives.
The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
President Trump, who celebrated the decision to suspend Kimmel, addressing the fallout at Kirk's memorial.
And the same commentators who this week are screaming fascism over a canceled late-night TV show where the anchor had no talent and no ratings. Last week were implying that Charlie Kirk deserved what happened to him.
But the Trump administration, including FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, are facing criticism from Democrats and even some Republicans for appearing to pressure ABC to take Kimmel off the air.
I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
In a rare break from President Trump, Republican Senator Ted Cruz comparing Carr's comments to those of a mob boss.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas.
Republican Senator Rand Paul also responding.
Absolutely inappropriate. Brendan Carr's got no business weighing in on this. But people have to also realize that despicable comments, you have the right to say them, but you don't have the right to employment.
Meanwhile, in Hollywood, celebrities, including stars of Disney Marvel movies like Mark Ruffalo, Pedro Pascal, and Marissa Tomei, showing support for Kimmel. The fallout continuing throughout the entertainment industry. While authorities are also looking into whether the controversy may be connected to a recent shooting at an ABC station. The FBI arresting a 64-year-old man they say is responsible for firing shots into the station in Sacramento. Social media pages appearing to belong to the suspect show he often shared posts critical of President Trump.
Today, President Trump's executive action imposing a $100,000 application fee for H-1B visa holders brings a level of uncertainty for workers and tech firms. HB-1 visas allow companies to temporarily employ highly skilled foreign workers, but the president claims H-1B pathway has displaced U.S. citizens from those jobs. Upon the announcement, a chaotic scene observed on some of the flights of people returning to the U.S. as they were trying to figure out what exactly it meant for them. With the law going into effect on Sunday, all current H-1B visa holders were required to return to the U.S. before midnight to be allowed entry. Experts say this decision could significantly impact industries that depend heavily on those HB-1 workers, the biggest being Amazon, which employs more than 14,000 H-1B visa holders. Well, as the Vikings season continues and the Lynx move forward into the playoffs, a lot of us will be looking for tickets, but many of them come with a pretty hefty price tag. For years now, many people have blamed Ticketmaster and Live Nation for those climbing prices. And as Kent Erdahl explains, yet another federal agency filing suit in hopes of cutting that stuff out.
Ticketmaster and parent company Live Nation aren't just a major player in entertainment. The DOJ calls them a monopoly.
It is time to break up Live Nation Ticketmaster.
1 year and one presidential administration ago, the Department of Justice sued Live Nation Ticketmaster for monopolizing markets with support from 30 states, including Minnesota.
When you have a monopoly, at first it seems okay. Hey, it's easy to use. But then over time, the fees and the money goes up and up and up because there's no competition.
A year later, the case is still in court and the companies are still intact. So the Federal Trade Commission is filing its own lawsuit.
Americans are sick of having to fork over an arm and a leg to take their family to a baseball game or to see their favorite show, their favorite musician.
The FTC complaint accuses Ticketmaster of 3 illegal practices: deceptive pricing, deceptive ticket limits, and violating the Better Online Ticket Sales Act. The FTC alleging that Ticketmaster and Live Nation routinely allow ticket brokers to exceed ticket limits, and also knowingly allow and in fact even encourage brokers to use multiple Ticketmaster accounts to circumvent Ticketmaster's own security measures and access control systems. It adds that one broker used the so-called mass buyer model to purchase more than 9,000 tickets on Ticketmaster to one night of Beyoncé's Renaissance tour, alleging Ticketmaster then sold over 2,500 of those tickets on the resale market.
Ticketmaster knew this was happening and let it happen because a lot of these sales were then going to Ticketmaster's secondary ticketing platform. And that means that, Ticketmaster and these brokers got to pocket profits.
According to the FTC, Ticketmaster pocketed at least $11 billion in fees alone between 2019 and 2024.
And the other piece of this is dynamic pricing. If Ticketmaster is encouraging these brokers to buy up tickets, then presumably the price is increasing because there's higher demand.
Minnesota State Rep Kelly Moeller has been working to rein in Ticketmaster pricing on the state level since 2023.
It's a bill that I started working on over a year ago after the Taylor Swift Eras tour tickets went on sale.
Her ticket price transparency law requiring the cost, including fees, up front went into effect in January. And by May, Ticketmaster announced that it was implementing that all-in pricing everywhere. She says in that respect, she has seen improvement.
And there is a mechanism for the Attorney General's office. If people are finding that that's not the case, certainly they can report that. But it does seem to me that at least that portion of the bill is being followed.
Ticketmaster's parent company Live Nation has yet to respond to the FTC lawsuit. Last year, they called the DOJ's antitrust lawsuit baseless, but their efforts to dismiss it were rejected by a judge this spring. And now 10 more states have since signed on. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.